Mm. Hi, so my name is Hayley and today it is the day before Christmas Eve and I wanted to start making more videos on mental health and how it affects people, how it's affected myself, and sort of talking about the various topics around mental health. And I've also come to realise that the best people to talk about mental health is those that have experienced it firsthand themselves, which is myself. I have struggled with my mental health probably since I was 11 or 12, and I am now 28, so I've had quite a lot of years of experience dealing with the issues that I've had. And as it's getting around Christmas time, I just wanted to make some videos because I know that the holiday season can be a really tricky season for those that are dealing with things like depression or anxiety. I know it can be really scary to spend time around family or extended family during this time, to meet up with friends. So when it comes to mental health, I have a few notes that I've written down that I want to kind of go over. When it comes to mental health, I first have a few statistics that I want to just go over, just to let people know not just how common mental health is, but how it really does affect so many people in different ways. So one of the charities that I go on the website quite a bit is Mind, and the Mind charity is mind.org.uk, and you can find loads of statistics. There's a helpline, there's quite a lot of available things that you can look on and you can study. So I pulled up some statistics from the website, and I found out that 1 in 5 people have suicidal thoughts, and this is such a big proportion of the UK. So this is the mind.org.uk website, and I'm in the UK, and I couldn't believe it when I read 1 in 5 people, because that is such a great proportion. 1 in 5 people have suicidal thoughts. 1 in 14 people self-harm. So unfortunately this was something that I started to do when I was about 11 or 12, and it was used for a variety of reasons for myself. It was used to gain a semblance of control in my life and to feel like I controlled something. It was used as a bit of a release for me. So I used to do it habitually, and then it became an addiction. And one of the things people don't talk about as much is how self-harm can become an addiction, and how when you do self-harm it releases certain chemicals in the brain, which then you go and look for those chemicals again by self-harming again. Now I haven't self-harmed in I say quite some time. Enough time has passed for me to safely say that I don't self-harm anymore, and I started when I was I had just come out of primary school, I was going into high school, and I was about 12 years old. I struggled with school massively as a kid. I struggled to make friends, I felt really lonely all the time. I wasn't, it's not that I wasn't good at my subjects, but I struggled to pay attention in class because I just felt like there was so much going on in my head. I couldn't just get home, do my homework, come in to school and hand it in. It would be like I wouldn't do my homework and then I'd feel anxious the next day that I hadn't done it. I'd wonder what the teacher might say. I'd be really scared of being told off by the teacher. I was just really anxious during my school years. So you're definitely not alone if you do struggle with school, or if you're even if you're in university or college, or you've left and you're in work. There are still things that affect me, and I'm currently not working. I am looking for a job hopefully next year. My last job, I was a chef, and it was so incredibly stressful, and I was asked to do so many things. A lot of the things weren't actually even my job, and I left there after I became quite ill, and I unfortunately had to be hospitalised. And I'm not going to talk about my hospitalisation a lot in this episode, just because I think I want to cover it in another one. But that was a really scary and traumatic time for me, and I don't wish it on my worst enemy. I was really unwell, and it's become, in a good sense, it's become the inspiration to make videos like this one, because I can be more open about it and talk about it. So as I was saying, mental health is something that has affected me throughout most of my adult life. And I know a few people who haven't suffered with their mental health, and yet I have seen that they do suffer in other aspects of their life. So they might not like their work, but they don't have like depression or anxiety around it. And it's really important to know that these issues can affect anyone at any age, in any social group, in any race, any religion, any class. You know, mental health really does not discriminate. And I started getting treatment for my mental health when I think I was 14 or 15. I was actually diagnosed with depression. But the thing is, I've been very careful not to attach myself to my diagnosis. And one of the things that I think I myself felt sort of wary of is, just because I have depression, that doesn't mean, you know, I am constantly and always depressed. I think there are days when I have particularly good days. I'm able to do an awful lot in my house, and I have held down jobs in the past that have been really, really stressful. So, hello baby. Hello. So there are a variety of mental health issues that affect people, and the most common are depression and anxiety. And I think anxiety has become so common in the modern world because of the pressures that people put upon themselves. And we have social media, which I just think can be such an incredibly toxic place. And if I had any advice for those that struggle with their self-worth, it would be to not focus on social media so much. And I know a lot of people do say that, and it is kind of a cliche thing at this point to say, you know, you're only seeing the highlights of people's lives, you're not seeing the behind the scenes. But it is honestly so true. I found myself recently watching this fitness channel, I won't say who it was, and every single day they were posting videos of like what food they were eating, how they were going on like 4-mile runs, how they were came out with like a new fitness book, and it just seemed like they had their life under control. And I know for a fact that this person definitely has bad days, not because I know her, but because I'm a human and she is too. And does she post those bad days? No, she doesn't. She doesn't post up, you know, she doesn't post when she gets up in the middle of the day or when she decides to sleep in. You know, she quite frequently posts that she gets up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, even when she's not working, and it's kind of exhausting just watching it. It can make people feel super guilty about the fact that they don't do more. And I currently see a support worker, and we talk about this sometimes, about how everybody has days when they're not feeling their best. They won't do as much as the like average person is expected to do, but that's absolutely perfectly okay. There are days when, you know, people don't feel like having showers, there are days when they don't feel like washing their hair, you know, and all these things are completely human and completely normal. So if you do have days where you feel like you don't want to do this stuff, don't, you know, don't let it define you, because it is perfectly normal to have those off days. And that's something that I wish I would have been told sort of 10-15 years ago, that like not everybody has their life together, and those that appear that they do, even they have cracks in their life which they don't show. They might not be very close to their family, they might not have a lot of friends. Not that there's anything wrong with these things, but I think people do have this sort of false expectation that you need to be, you know, really close with your family, you need to have lots of friends, you need to like keep up with the news, you need to be well read, you need to like have a shower consistently every single day, and if you miss a day of not having a shower, nothing awful is going to happen, it's absolutely fine, it's just one of those things. And as we're getting close to Christmas as well, one thing I want to say is that there's a big expectation around meeting family and friends, and sort of having that image that everything is okay, and it's okay during Christmas time. You're not going to ruin the festive spirit for anyone if you call yourself out and say, listen, you know, I haven't been my best lately, or I have been struggling a little bit. It's more important to be open and honest and have a dialogue about your struggles than to keep it in and then sort of people have no idea what's going on with you. You know, if people don't understand and know what's going on with you, then they can't treat you accordingly to your issues and things like that. And I think there is, when people do have a mental illness as well, I think there's such a wide variety of mental illnesses that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So if you have depression versus maybe you have bipolar, or maybe you have borderline personality disorder, or maybe you just have really severe anxiety, maybe you can't leave your home, any of these things, there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. Saying that there are a few things that do help pretty much everybody, however, if you can't do these things, it doesn't mean that you're going to have to live with the illness forever. I recommend things like getting outside, having a look at nature, even if it's just, and I know this sounds like nothing at all, even if it's just for 10 minutes and you get out and you walk around your block or you walk around your neighbourhood and then you come back. I know it's only 10 minutes, but it's something that you can tick down, you can put down that you've done in your diary, or if you don't have a diary, like I don't have a diary, you can always just take a few pictures with your phone, and that way when you look back on your camera roll when you're sitting there at night or whatever, you can at least look back and say, I remember that, I remember going out and doing that. And it's really, really hard to find a motivation, especially in winter time when everything is absolutely cold and it's freezing outside. I know how hard it is to get out. We have had some really, truly awful weather here. I think it was -9 last week. And did I feel like doing anything? No, I did not. I slept in till maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock the other day, because I woke up, it was absolutely freezing. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to get changed. I didn't want to go to the bathroom and have to stand there in my cold bathroom and get changed. And did anything awful happen because of that? No, it didn't. Everything was fine. I think I missed a text off my mum to tell me something, and that was it. I just kind of want to make more awareness about that these things are perfectly normal to do, and you're not always expected to get up at 7:30 in the morning, make yourself some, a big smoothie bowl or whatever, and then write in your gratitude diary, and then go for an hour run, and then get back, and then do some cleaning, and then make yourself a coffee, and then do a variety of different tasks. That's not always realistic for people. And these get ready with me, what I eat in a day, those kind of style of videos, I cannot stress enough how people do not put the things that they don't want people to see on them, and it's just another reason how social media can be so toxic. So please, if I had any advice for people, and I would stress that try not to compare yourself to other people. And this is something I also wish I would have known sort of 10 years ago, that everybody's life looks so different on the outside than it does on the inside. One of the things that's really hard to do, especially in the winter time, is eat the right foods. I find that because I'm cold and I'm snacking a lot on sort of unhealthy foods, and if you are doing this, it's not the end of the world, like I'm saying. It's okay that you don't get up and make yourself, these smoothie bowls, or make yourself, a big platter of food or anything like that. It's okay if you skip breakfast once or twice. It's okay that you might get up late. These things are not going to make or break things. You can only control what you can control. So one of the things I want to do is touch upon some things that can make that can kind of degrade your mental health and make your mental health even worse. Now, I don't want to come across like I'm preaching or anything like that. I don't want to come across like I'm telling people what to do or what not to do. I'm only speaking from my experience and what I've figured out works and what doesn't work for me. And I definitely want to touch upon things like drugs and alcohol, bad dietary choices as well, despite what I've said about it's okay if you miss a meal, or it's okay if you eat junk food all day. Doing that consistently for say weeks or months upon end will have a slight effect on your body. You'll feel a bit more sluggish, you'll be less sort of motivated to get up in the morning because your body just will be tired. Now, my advice is not to go out and be a fruitarian and buy, a load of fruit, or only be a vegetarian or a vegan or anything like that. My advice would just be to find things that you enjoy and spend a little bit of quality time just getting to know your food and preparing your food. Even if you just vow once or twice a week that you're going to go in the kitchen and you're going to spend an hour maybe just cooking something, and you can meal prep for the next couple of weeks or something. It certainly isn't something that like I want to make feel like it's a big effort to do. But my advice would be to maybe get a few cookery books, either from the library, or if you can browse charity shops or thrift stores and pick up some cookery books and just flick through them and get some inspiration. Start with that. Even if you don't feel like cooking anything, at least you'll have a few ideas in the back of your mind. You can always make a list of the foods that you do and you don't like, and next time you go shopping, pick up a couple of them. Even if you pick up a couple of foods that that are super healthy for you, maybe some fruit, maybe some vegetables, and then pick up a few things that aren't so healthy for you and find that balance there. For instance, I really like mangoes, but they're quite expensive where I am. So if I'm going to make something with mangoes, I make sure, if I'm going to say I make a smoothie or something, I make sure I pick up a couple of bananas, which are a bit cheaper, and then I can mix it with the mangoes and have a mango and banana smoothie, which isn't so expensive. Do I do this every day? Certainly not. Do I do it every week? Sometimes no. It's just as and when you can. So I want to go back to things like drugs and alcohol for a second. I was told about 10 years ago by a friend of mine at school that alcohol was a depressant, and at the time I was drinking quite heavily. I was in my last year of sixth form, so I was about 17 at the time, and I remember that year being significantly quite bad for me. I ended up actually taking an overdose towards the end of the year because my mental health was so bad. And I don't think it was a coincidence that I was also drinking a lot. I was going out it doesn't sound a lot, but I was going out maybe 2 or 3 times a week. But I'm only quite small, and my tolerance was always quite low for alcohol, and I would get absolutely wasted, especially on the weekend as well. And I'd wake up the next morning and I would feel sick, I would feel unmotivated, I would feel groggy, I wouldn't want any breakfast, I wouldn't want to get into fresh clean clothes. I'd probably just pick up whatever was on my bedroom floor, which is awful, but we all do it. I still do it to this day sometimes. And individually these things aren't the worst, but when you are doing it consistently, it's like with exercise. If you maybe going to the gym once won't make a massive difference, but if you consistently go to the gym, you'll notice a difference. It's a bit like that with drinking. If you drink once or twice, it might not make a difference, but if you're consistent with that, you are going to see your mental health degrading over time. And it's might be a good time to touch upon how closely related physical health and mental health is. So if you're drinking a lot, if you're drinking heavily and getting a lot of junk food in the evening because of that, or if you're not eating the day after, then your physical health isn't going to feel the best, and you're also going to then have that translated to your mental health, and you're going to start to feel sluggish in your brain. You're going to start to not do the things that you enjoy doing because you want to sleep or because you just don't feel motivated. So things like drinking is kind of important to keep an eye on, especially, and I say this quite adamantly, especially if you're on medication as well. Depending on what medication you're on, you might not be able to drink at all. Now, I also want to touch upon drugs for a moment. I'm specifically talking about cannabis, and this is something that I have done to an extent in the past that it had such an effect on my mental health that I could no longer function. I used to smoke quite heavily, and it's something that if you're able to, if you're ever for some reason find yourself on Reddit under the psychosis subreddit, which is a page on Reddit where people talk about their experiences with psychosis, you will see so many people say about how cannabis is very, very harmful to those that have maybe that crack in their mental health already, or they have a predisposition to mental health issues, and you smoke a lot of weed or you smoke a lot of pot, it will eventually start, that crack in your mental health will start to massively crack even further, and you will see a decline in your mental health. Some people, and I'm not dismissing these people at all, some people swear by cannabis, they could not speak of it better. However, I would say stay away from anything like that if you have a predisposition, and I don't want to appear again that I'm preaching this. I'm only speaking from my experience that these things were just not, they were incredibly toxic towards me. However, some people, like I have a friend of mine who has to smoke it every day just to feel human again, and that person, it hasn't affected negatively. So it's one of those where, you know, if you can take it or leave it, I would personally say leave it. However, if you need it to function, that's completely your experience and your opinion, and that's obviously, you know, working for you. But for myself, only for myself, I have found that it really didn't work for me. So I would say things like other drugs as well, you know, like to avoid taking too many drugs as well. And again, it's that consistency. If you take, let's just say cocaine once, you might be okay, you might not feel any negative reactions, but if you take it consistently, like once or twice a week or even every day, then you will start to notice your mental health decline due to the fact that it does work on the brain. And it might not be the cocaine itself, but it might be the fact that you spend time taking drugs instead of being at home and maybe doing some reading or some cleaning or anything like that. And another thing as well, that it feels almost hypocritical of me to say, but keeping a tidy house and keeping a clean working environment around you is also something that can have an effect on your mental health. If your house is really messy, it is going to translate into the mind, and it's not a case of like, people oversimplify it a bit by saying, oh, messy house, messy mind. It's more the fact that you wake up in the morning, you can't find the clothes that you want to put on, so you put on something that you would rather not wear, which makes you feel a bit more down. You don't feel good about yourself when you then go out into public, you're maybe tugging at your clothes, or you're looking down and thinking, I'd rather not wear this. You can't make breakfast in the morning because the dishes are piled up, so you go without breakfast, which means that you're probably a little bit more sluggish during the day. You go and maybe you want to read a book or something and you can't find your book that you want to read because it's a mess. You know, it's all these things that come as an effect of having a messy house, not just a case of messy house, messy mind. It really isn't as simple as that. It can be, you know, like you might not be able to watch TV because you can't find the remote, and then you're then bored, and so you go and decide to do something that's like unhealthy instead. So I've touched upon a few things that can make your mental health a lot worse, such as drugs, alcohol, having a messy house. And I want to talk about some things that can hopefully improve your mental health. And I know that I've talked about having good dietary choices, but not feeling compelled to, you know, like every single day eat something super healthy. And I would recommend things like not necessarily meal prepping. For instance, you might not want to prep a week's of meals. You might not feel like you want to eat that when it actually comes to eating the meals. What I would recommend is making a list of the foods that you would enjoy eating, even if it's just on a post-it note or in your phone. Make a list of things that you know that you like once it's prepared, and then you can sort of self-reference and go to that list. That way, if you are feeling like you're not sure what you want to eat, or you're not sure what to get from the shops when you go shopping, you can look at that list and think, well, at least, you know, I quite like this, I quite like this. There are a few meals I really like that I know I'm going to enjoy no matter sort of what my mood is, and I know that when you have mental health crisis, or when you have mental health problems rather, eating and sleeping and drinking, they can all be really tricky things to navigate. Sleeping is a really big one as well. I would say that I have had my sleep affected by mental health, and my mental health has affected my sleep. So it works both ways. When I was really unwell about 6 months ago, I wasn't sleeping at all, and that had a really, really negative effect on my mental health. I have had someone tell me that most of the population are only about 5 sleepless nights away from psychosis. Now, obviously, how true this is, we can't exactly go test it, but being tired and being underrested can have a massive knock-on effect. So one of the things that I think is quite important to remember is having a decent sleep routine. This doesn't have to be a nighttime routine, so this isn't necessarily, you know, going to bed, washing your face, cleaning your teeth. This isn't necessarily those kinds of things. It's more things like having a cup of tea or a hot water bottle in bed, making sure that your bedding is like not necessarily clean, but it's bedding that you want, making sure you have enough pillows, if you're going to read in bed or if you're going to watch a little bit of TV before night time, making sure it's something that you can sort of watch and then turn off and then go to sleep. I have an awful habit of watching really gory shows. When I say gory, like I've been watching Z Nation before I go to bed, which is like a TV show about zombies, and that's probably not the healthiest, and I totally know that. I've also been watching Wednesday, the new Netflix series, and that's quite dark. So again, you know, I'm not kind of saying like definitely do these things and you're going to be fine, because I've also, you know, I'm not necessarily saying that you have to do these things. This is more like suggestions if you're struggling and if you can do them. But even so, there's nothing terribly wrong with watching some TV before bedtime. I do it to get off to sleep. I would recommend reading something instead. It kind of helps the brain and body calm down. But like I talked about, having a good nighttime routine as opposed to having sort of a sleep routine, it's things like picking a good book that you want to watch rather than like trying to go through your entire, you know, like catalogue of books, especially if you're using like an ebook reader where you maybe have like thousands of choices on there. Pick something during the day that you're going to read at nighttime. If you have any practices, if you like to meditate or even pray before bed, then, you know, like setting a good time to do that. One thing, whilst we're talking about it, one thing I find can be quite toxic in the sort of self-help community, and this also kind of leaks over to the spiritual community, is that I see so many people recommending meditation. I have nothing personally against meditation, however, I would say that it's kind of over-recommended at this point, and that meditation, especially if you have a mental health condition, I'm not saying it's going to make it worse, that's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that it could potentially aggravate situations if you're not in the right headspace to meditate and you're sitting with these negative thoughts and you're trying to let them flow, or you're even trying to push them away, or, you know, all you're really doing is sitting with the same thought for maybe 10 minutes, half an hour, maybe even an hour. And I know that meditation has helped me in the past, however, I can also tell you times when it's not helped me, and when I've not been able to get out of that frame of mind and I've been sort of stuck with it for maybe half an hour of meditating. It isn't always right for everybody all the time. So if you struggle to meditate, or if you struggle to even understand why people do, you're not alone in that. It's not sort of a requirement. I would recommend it if you can. Just take 10 minutes in the evening or in the morning just to switch off your brain. If you can, you know, don't feel bad if you can't meditate. It's not something that is for everybody all the time. It might be better to sort of read something instead before bed, or in the morning, or during the evening. You know, it's not something that I would say was a super requirement. There's lots of different types of treatment, and I think one thing that is sometimes quite toxic is sort of recommending meditation over, say, medication. I am currently on medication for a mental health condition that I have, and although I have had my medication reduced quite a few times, I would certainly say that I currently need it to function, and it has helped me get off to sleep. It helped me eat, because I was incredibly underweight when I was when it was first found out that I really wasn't well, and I was hospitalised. I was very underweight, and the medication helped me put on probably about 1.5 stone. This obviously isn't ideal for everyone, but it is what was needed for myself. One thing I would also recommend is having a craft or a hobby that you like to do. I've enjoyed knitting in the past, and I've got back into knitting again. I've also enjoyed playing on my Nintendo. I have a really old Nintendo DS that I found really helps switch off my mind, and sometimes I would prefer to do that over meditating. It's a really calm, cool game. It's a cozy game that I can get into. I play Animal Crossing sometimes, and the soundtrack for it is just really kind of mellow and happy at the same time. And even playing that for half an hour can help sort of cool my brain off and calm down a little bit, especially if I've been watching like a lot of TV. It's good to kind of like disengage the mind, but in an engaging way, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So finding hobbies such as cooking, such as knitting, such as gaming, such as writing, poetry, any of these things can really help. There are lots of different ways of self-care, and they don't always involve having really extravagant morning routines. They don't always involve having hour-long nighttime routines where you see people put on like 1,000,001 things on their face and then they go to bed and they wake up and they do it all again. Even if you just end up wiping your face with a face cloth and putting on a little bit of soap, if that's all you can manage for the evening, then that's all you can manage. It could be some weeks that you do a more extravagant face routine, and some nights you really don't feel like doing it, and that's okay too. It's important not to be hard on yourself if you can't do what you see other people doing on YouTube. As I've said before, you are seeing them at their best days. And not only that, but it's often these people's jobs, like especially if you're a YouTuber and people are looking at you for inspiration. You get up and you do that knowing that you're going to get either paid or you're going to get a lot of views doing it. So it's really, really important and imperative that you don't compare like for like when you see these people doing these things. So I'm going to leave it there, and because it's the day before Christmas Eve, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a really good New Year. And I'll check in a few days' time and make another video about some advice that I have. Alright, bye people.